Most people who read The Richest Man in Babylon finish it thinking they learned the whole thing. They didn't. The book contains 7 distinct rules for building wealth. 95% of summaries, videos, and finance content only covers Rule 1. The remaining 6, the ones that actually separate the people who build lasting wealth from those who stay permanently stuck at the beginning, almost nobody talks about them. Today, we go through all 7. By the time this video ends, you will have a complete wealth-building framework from one of the most influential financial texts ever written. Not just the part everyone quotes at you. George S. Clason published The Richest Man in Babylon in 1926. It tells the story of Arkad, a scribe in ancient Babylon who became the city's wealthiest man, and the 7 principles he taught to others seeking to do the same. Warren Buffett has cited its core principles. Financial advisors have handed it to clients for a century. And yet, when most people discuss it, they quote exactly one line. "A part of all I earn is mine to keep." That is Rule 1. It is important. But it is the entry point, not the destination. Let's go through all 7, starting where everyone else starts and ending where almost no one goes. Arkad's first rule is the one everyone knows, and the one almost nobody consistently applies. Before you pay your rent, before you pay your bills, before you buy food, before you settle any debt, 10% of everything you earn is yours to keep, not to spend, not to lend, to keep, permanently. Clason's phrasing matters here. He did not say save 10%. He said a part of all you earn is yours to keep. The distinction is psychological. Saving implies temporary holding before spending. Keeping implies permanent ownership, the beginning of a wealth base that does not get drained back into life's expenses. Most people pay everyone else first: landlord, utility company, government, credit card company, and save whatever remains. Clason's observation, which modern behavioral economics has since confirmed, is that whatever remains is almost always nothing. The jar never fills because the money never reaches the jar. Rule 1 establishes the habit and the minimum. Everything else is built on top of it. But Rule 1 alone is not a wealth strategy. It is the foundation. You still need the 6 floors above it. Clason's second rule addresses the force that prevents Rule 1 from working. This is Parkinson's law applied to money. Expenses expand to fill the income available. The person earning $30,000 a year and the person earning $300,000 a year often have the same relationship with their money, spending everything that comes in and finding it somehow never enough. Clason's instruction was specific: budget, not in the modern sense of tracking every coffee, but in the fundamental sense of deciding in advance what your money is for. Assign a purpose to every coin before it arrives. The rent, the food, the clothing, the jar. The pleasure money, because Clason was explicit that pleasure is a legitimate budget item, not a guilty afterthought. The rule is not austerity, it is intention. A person who consciously chooses to spend 90% of their income on a good life while protecting 10% for wealth is making a fundamentally different decision than a person who spends 90% by accident. Same number, different result over time, because one is building and one is just surviving. Rule 3 is where the shift from saving to building happens. Clason wrote, "Gold in a purse is satisfying to touch and gaze upon, but it earns nothing. Put it to work. Make every coin you keep the servant of other coins." This is the principle of compound returns, written long before compound interest was formalized in Western economics. Arkad did not merely keep his gold, he put it to work, lending it to craftsmen who would repay it with interest, investing it in trades that would return more than they cost. The mechanism matters less than the principle. Every form of passive income, dividend stocks, rental income, interest on savings, royalties, business equity, is an expression of Rule 3. The coin works, the person does not have to. What makes Rule 3 the dividing line in most people's financial lives is this. Most people stop at Rule 1. They save 10%, they protect it in a jar, and they feel responsible. But the jar just sits there. The coins do not multiply. The wealth base never grows beyond what they manually add to it. Multiplication is what separates the person who is building wealth from the person who is merely not losing it. This is the rule that most financial content skips entirely, and it may be the most important one. Clayson wrote, "The first sound principle of investment is security for the principal. The penalty of risk is probable loss." This sounds obvious. It is not practiced. Clayson's observation was that people who work hard to accumulate wealth are paradoxically the most vulnerable to losing it, because they are targeted by those offering high returns with high risk, and because the emotional momentum of building makes people want to accelerate rather than protect. Arkad's counsel was blunt. Do not be swayed by the romantic idea of large gains. Guard what you have built. Every investment must pass one test before all others. Can I afford to lose this principle entirely? If the answer is yes, proceed cautiously. If the answer is no, do not proceed at all. The wealthy are not primarily aggressive. They are primarily defensive. They know what they are building, and they know that a single large loss can erase years of compounding. Their highest principle is not maximum return. It is the preservation of principle. This rule is the answer to the question, why do lottery winners go broke? Why do professional athletes lose fortunes? Not because they lacked Rule 1, because they skipped Rule 4. They multiplied without protecting, and the multiplication reversed. Clayson's fifth rule is the one that surprises people when they hear it stated plainly. This was not written as real estate investment advice. It was written as stability advice. Arkad observed that men who owned their homes had fewer money anxieties, were able to save more consistently, and could build wealth from a position of security rather than chronic vulnerability. The landlord would never raise the rent. The home could not be taken. The foundation was literal and psychological. Clayson was careful to qualify this. The home is a profitable investment only when acquired prudently and within means, not when purchased with debt so large it consumes the capacity to save. The point was not to stretch for a house at any cost. The point was that once acquired, a home owned fully removes the largest recurring expense most people carry and redirects that money toward building. In modern terms, Clayson's fifth rule is less about the specific act of home ownership and more about the underlying principle. Reduce your fixed obligations over time. The person who eliminates their largest monthly expense has fundamentally more capacity to apply Rules 3 and 4 than the person who carries that obligation indefinitely. Rule 6 is the one Clayson wrote for the person who cannot work. Arkad's observation was that every working person arrives, at some point, at the end of their working years, or at an unexpected disruption to their ability to work. Illness, injury, age, the market. And at that moment, the person who built income streams that do not require their direct labor survives with dignity. The person who only ever traded their time for money arrives at that moment with nothing. This is the rule about passive income streams, but it is deeper than the modern financial content version. Clayson was not talking about side hustles or lifestyle design. He was talking about long-term deliberate construction of income sources that outlast your productive years. Investments that pay dividends, properties that generate rent, businesses that run without you, insurance that protects against the income you might lose. Most people spend their careers building someone else's future income. They build the business. They generate the returns. They create the product. And none of that produces the passive streams that will sustain them when they no longer can. Rule 6 requires building something for yourself with the same deliberateness you bring to your work for others. Clayson's 7th rule is the one that closes the loop on everything before it. He wrote, "Cultivate thy own powers. Study and become wiser. Become more skillful. Act so as to respect yourself." This is not a generic call to self-improvement. It is a specific financial principle. Your earning capacity is the engine that powers everything else. Rules 1 through 6 only work if the income flowing through them grows. A man saving 10% of $30,000 a year is building, but he is building slowly. A man who invests in his skills increases his earning capacity to $60,000 and saves the same 10% is building twice as fast with no additional sacrifice. Arkad was a scribe who studied money. He did not simply work harder. He became the person who understood what most people never bothered to understand. His knowledge of wealth became his competitive advantage, and his competitive advantage became his income. This is the rule that compounds everything else. Every dollar you invest in your capacity to earn returns more than a dollar invested elsewhere, because it raises the base on which all other rules operate. The person who commits to learning one high-value skill per year, to becoming genuinely better at their work, to understanding the financial landscape they inhabit. That person has more to save, more to invest, more to protect, and more to pass on. Rule 7 is not an afterthought. It is the multiplier of every rule before it. 7 rules, written long ago, still intact. Pay yourself first. Control your expenditures. Make your gold multiply. Guard your treasure from loss. Own your dwelling. Ensure a future income. Increase your ability to earn. The reason most people only know Rule 1 is not that the other 6 are complicated. It is that Rule 1 is the most comfortable. It requires a habit change, not a mindset change. It does not require you to think about compounding, or risk, or what happens when you can no longer work, or whether your skills are actually growing. Rules 4 through 7 require a fundamentally different relationship with money, not as something that flows through you, but as something you are building, something that should outlast your direct participation, something that should serve you as you once served it. Clayson finished his book with an observation worth sitting with. He wrote, "A lean purse is easier to cure than to endure. The work of applying all 7 rules is less painful than the alternative, which is arriving at the end of your productive years, having only ever applied the first one." The Richest Man in Babylon is in the description below, along with the books that expand on each of these 7 principles in modern terms. If this video gave you something to think about, subscribe. New wealth and mindset content every Tuesday and Friday. And if you found something in one of these 7 rules that hit differently for you, drop it in the comments. I read every one.